Ball's in the Senate's court now that the House has passed a short-term government funding bill. Joining us now is Libby, Cantrill, PIMCO's head of U.S. public policy. Senate needs 60.
They need 60. They probably are going to need either 8 or 9 votes, depending on what Rand Paul and Rick Scott do.
Yeah, Rand Paul said.
Yeah, 8 or 9. I should say Democratic votes. Yeah, because of course they need 60 votes, unlike just a simple majority in the House. So open
because
question.
Kamala's not president, so you still need 60 votes.
You still need 60 votes.
Filibuster's still around.
Yeah, and this obviously puts Senate Democrats in a difficult spot because no House Democrat voted for the House bill.
I thought one did.
I'm sorry.
The guy from Maine
Golden. Yeah, Jerry Golden did.
And Fetterman, right. I believe, Senator Fetterman has said that he'll vote.
He'll vote for it, right? But that's one on the road to 8 or 9.
It's not bipartisan. If you forget, remember all the bills that we passed with, Kitzinger, and it was.
Yeah, I mean, and I do think that just the fact that they were able to pass that bill in the House with such a large Republican majority, again, losing just one Republican and gaining one Democrat, really does speak to the strength of Speaker Johnson, but also to the bully pulpit of the president. I mean, he did a lot of behind-the-scenes lobbying, obviously, and also, tweeting through his Truth Social account. Right. So I think underscores the importance of his brand. Of course, if you go back to 2024 in the same funding fight, only 100 Republicans actually voted for a very similar bill. So, again, sort of speaks to the strength of the president.
It reminds me of President Johnson.
Yeah,
was able to do
yeah. But open question, obviously, in terms of what the Senate does. I think that just realistically, we are not expecting a shutdown. And by the way, none of our clients are asking about a shutdown.
How does it work then?
This is just a sideshow in terms of what's happening out of Washington.
None of the Democrats in the Trump heavy districts voted for the House bill. They didn't have to, though, because it was going to pass. They got a free one. It's not going to be the same with the Democrat senators that are in Trump heavy areas.
Of course,
they may be pressured. Is it possible you get 6? And they don't have Hakeem Jeffries, who oversees the Borg Collective in the House. They never break. They've never lost a vote on any. Except for the one. I called him that.
I know.
Remember,
Yes,
Hakeem Jeffries got every vote 15 times for Speaker. What about does Schumer have the same? He even waffled yesterday.
Well, do the Democrats get blamed if there's a shutdown?
Right, Schumer
absolutely.
waffled.
I mean, I think that the reality here is a shutdown is a political loser for both parties, and Democrats realize that. The House is now recessed for both this week and next week, so the Senate basically has to pass something. What I think probably will happen is Democrats vote for what's called cloture to allow for the vote to proceed, and then they vote against the actual vote. So they can sort of, triangulate around that vote when they're trying to explain it to voters. I will just reinforce, though, that none of our clients are asking about this, right? So they do believe that government funding is a bit of a sideshow, that they've seen this movie before.
I know where you were going with that.
Where was I going with that?
Before it was a sideshow. Anyway.
Oh, another S show.
Anyway.
Another show. Another show.
That's very good.
Anyway, so
if you need to pull something out of your nose.
Our clients are also not talking about that either. But what they are talking about, obviously, is just the other headlines. I think that maybe this does give some sort of confidence to the market, though, that a tax bill can get done sooner than what I think was feared. Obviously, if they were mired in a shutdown, that would have sort of prevented them maybe from moving forward to a budget resolution.
Shutdown seems like it's different than taxes to me. Okay, wait, I'm rethinking this as I'm saying this. Maybe not, because no Democrat wants to get blamed for every American's tax bill going up either.
Well, no, and what I'm just saying is this sort of clears the deck in terms of the House to be able to move forward, and I think, again, gives Speaker Johnson more credibility in terms of his ability to get the necessary votes in difficult bills. And he's obviously had the House budget resolution, a difficult vote, right, authorizing up to $900 billion of cuts in energy and commerce, which are likely Medicaid cuts. A difficult vote for, I think, a lot of moderate Republicans to vote for. He was able to get that through. And obviously, this most recent victory.
Should we call it Medicaid? If you're cutting projected increases in Medicaid, but it still goes up 2% a year, is it a cut in Medicaid?
I mean, how I think Democrats are framing this is absolutely.
Yes. Any cut, even in the increase, is a cut.
And it would be a cut. It would be a net cut, even though you're right that mandatory spending has crept up over time, both Medicaid, Medicare, and then also Social Security.
Medicare and Social Security, not nearly as much. They've almost been flat.
Yeah, well, Medicaid, obviously, the expansion of the Affordable Care Act.
Medicare and Social Security, exactly.
Yeah, Medicaid, the expansion of the Affordable Care. The other thing, though, the upshot of this show, is that Medicaid's a lot more popular than it used to be. I think those cuts used to be a lot easier 20 years ago. Now I think you fast forward and these cuts are going to be much more difficult.
By the way, it's
Medicaid. Very popular in red states and very popular with the Republican. Right. I was just talking to Mark Bertolini, who's going to be on with us tomorrow. He was saying that Republicans, 80% of them favor keeping the ACA additional subsidies because they're using them.
The reality is 1 in 5 Americans get their health insurance through Medicaid, 1 in 3 in many red states. So if you look at Louisiana, if you look at West Virginia, if you look at Arkansas, 1 in 3 folks are getting their health coverage through Medicaid. So again, we'll see. Speaker Johnson has been able to do some really pretty unprecedented things, but I think quite difficult. And particularly in the Senate, I think that will be sort of the rub. And this could be, again, we've talked about to our clients that the market has been having to eat more vegetables than dessert. I think they're hungry for their dessert, but this Medicaid cuts could be yet another kind of obstacle in terms of getting.
And Republicans don't like Obamacare, but they love the Affordable Care Act subsidies, which is
that's an issue. Vernacular and nomenclature actually does matter in politics. The last thing I will just say about this government funding bill that we've been talking to our clients about is it does not codify the DOGE cuts. This is something I think is really important as big Treasury investors like PIMCO is. If you want to actually see a reduction in the deficit, and you know this, you actually have to codify these cuts that Elon Musk is sort of putting through into law. If you do not do that, that money effectively just goes into basically a banking account of these various agencies, and they cannot touch it for 5 years. So while it makes a lot of headlines, in terms of actual deficit reduction, then it can go back into the Treasury General account.
Libby, why are we're headed for $2 trillion again? Why?
$2 trillion, I mean...
Deficit. And next year, too? We were under $1 trillion before the pandemic.
Yeah. Well,
the pandemic's over.
Yes. And I think that a lot of what you're saying, obviously discretionary spending has crept up, but then also mandatory spending. And we have talked about this, is that in order to actually do anything about the fiscal trajectory, you have to do something about on the mandatory spending. And you probably have to do something on the revenue side. And then obviously interest rates have backed up and been a big portion of the government spending as well.